Keanu stood outside the Royal Art Hall, his fingers cold and a little dirty from the charcoal he used. He didn't have gloves. His shoes had small holes, and his toes felt the wind sneaking in. Still, he held his drawing tightly under his arm carefully, rolled so it wouldn't get ruined. It was his best work, his most important work. He had never been inside a place so big and shiny. The building looked like something out of a dream. Golden lights glowed from inside. The windows were so clear, they looked like water. Everyone walking in wore fancy clothes, black coats, sparkling dresses, polished shoes. He looked down at his jacket. It was old and too big. His mom had bought it from a second-hand store. People walked past him, barely looking. Some glanced and then looked away quickly. Others whispered. A boy in a blue suit laughed as he passed. "Who let the cleaner in?" he said to his friend. Keanu heard it. He stayed quiet. He had worked so hard to get here. There were hundreds of kids who had applied for the youth art competition. Only 20 were chosen. Keanu was one of them. His teacher had cried when she saw the letter. His mom had smiled through her pain. She was sick, very sick, but she told him, "You go, Keanu. Show them what you can do." Now standing there, Keanu wasn't so sure anymore. Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe he didn't belong here. A man at the door finally nodded to him. "Are you one of the finalists?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Keanu nodded slowly and showed his name card. "All right. Go ahead, but be quick." Keanu stepped into the hall. His shoes made soft squeaking sounds on the floor. Everything inside looked so clean, so shiny. There were paintings already on the walls, big, colorful ones, in golden frames. Some were of landscapes. Others were strange, with lines and shapes. He didn't understand in the center. There were tables with sparkling drinks and tiny food that looked too fancy to eat. Teenagers his age stood in groups, laughing, talking. Their parents were with them, men in suits, women in dresses, all with smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Keanu found the table with the name cards. He found his own name, Keanu Michaels. It looked strange, printed in gold. A man pointed him toward the display stands. He walked slowly toward the spot marked with his name. It was near the corner, far from the front. He carefully unrolled his drawing. It was a sketch of his mother. She was smiling, holding a flower in one hand. Her scarf covered her head. Her eyes looked tired but kind. He placed the drawing on the board and stepped back. It looked so small compared to the others. But to him, it was everything. A group of teens walked by and stopped near his work. "Is that pencil?" one girl asked, laughing. "Seriously?" "Maybe it's a joke," another boy added. "Looks like something from a subway wall." Keanu lowered his eyes. He wanted to speak, but his throat felt tight. Instead, he stayed quiet. Just then, one of the judges walked by. She had sharp eyes and wore black heels that clicked loudly. She stopped at Keanu's drawing. Her lip curled a little. "No color. No depth. Is this even?" She didn't finish the sentence. She turned away before Keanu could say anything. Other kids laughed again. Keanu clenched his fists but said nothing. He remembered what his mom told him before he left. "Not everyone will understand your art, but someone will feel it. That's enough." He stood there as more people walked by and ignored him. Some didn't even look at his work. Others just smiled politely and moved on. One boy even took a picture of it and snickered to his friend. Keanu looked around and wondered, should I have come here? He wanted to leave, but he couldn't. Not after everything his mom gave up just so he could be here. Not after the nights she sat beside him, watching him draw. Not after the hospital visits, the medicine, the pain. She hid behind her smiles. Just then, there was a small stir in the hall. People began whispering. Heads turned. Cameras clicked. A man in a gray suit walked in, tall, confident, kind-looking. It was Prince William. Everyone straightened up. The judges rushed forward. The parents smiled wider. The teens fixed their hair and stood taller. Keanu stayed in his corner, silent, holding his hands behind his back. He didn't expect anything. He didn't even think the prince would look at him. But then something happened. Prince William was walking past the rows of art when he suddenly stopped. He turned and looked at Keanu's drawing. He tilted his head. Took a step closer. The room went quiet. He leaned in to look more carefully. His eyes scanned the pencil lines, the soft shadows, the emotion in the smile. He didn't laugh. Instead, the prince said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Wait, let me see that again." And just like that, everything changed. All eyes turned to Prince William as he took a step closer to the sketch. The room, which had been full of laughter and whispering a moment ago, was now silent. Even the judges who had been walking around paused. Some looked confused, others nervous. Keanu didn't know what to do. He stood still, his heart beating fast. He couldn't believe the prince was looking at his drawing of his mother. Prince William bent slightly, studying the artwork. His eyes moved carefully across the page. He didn't speak right away. He just looked. A few people began to whisper again, but this time their tone had changed. There was no laughter now. One of the judges, a tall man with glasses, quickly walked over to the prince and said in a soft voice, "That's a simple sketch, Your Highness. Just pencil, nothing special." The prince didn't answer him. Instead, he turned to Keanu. "You drew this?" he asked gently. Keanu nodded. He couldn't find his voice. His hands were shaking behind his back. The prince smiled kindly. "What's her name?" Keanu swallowed hard. "Maria, she's my mom." The prince's expression changed, softer, warmer. He turned back to the drawing. "It feels alive," he said. Now people started to walk closer too. Some of the other contestants came near, pretending not to stare. The girl who had laughed earlier now looked uncomfortable. One of the judges tried again. "Your Highness, the technique is very basic. It doesn't follow standard gallery." Prince William raised his hand slightly. "Art isn't always about perfect technique," he said. "Sometimes it's about truth, about heart." Keanu felt like his knees might give out. No one had ever defended his work before. "Not like this. Tell me, Keanu," the prince said. "Why did you choose to draw this?" Keanu took a deep breath. Everyone was watching him now. But he didn't care. He thought of his mom lying in the hospital bed, her hand holding the flower, the smile she gave him even when she was in pain. "She lost her hair during chemo," he said quietly. "She didn't like looking in the mirror anymore, so I drew her. The way I remember her smile. I wanted her to feel pretty again." Someone in the back of the room gasped softly. "I used chalk and pencil," Keanu added, "because that's all I had." Prince William didn't speak for a moment. He simply nodded. "This," he said finally, "is the kind of art that makes people feel something." The judge with glasses cleared his throat, clearly embarrassed. "Your Highness, the other pieces follow more advanced methods. Use of color, texture." "I see that," said the prince calmly. "They're very well done. But this one tells a story." Keanu stood frozen. He wasn't used to this kind of attention. Just hours ago, he had doubted himself, thinking he didn't belong. But now, the most important person in the room was looking at his art with respect. The girl in the red dress who had laughed before stepped forward slowly. She looked at the drawing again. I didn't notice how real it looked before," she whispered. Her eyes. The boy in the blue suit who had made the janitor joke looked away, his face red. People began to murmur on the room. Words like powerful, moving, and real floated through the crowd. Keanu's drawing, once ignored, was now the center of attention. Prince William looked at the judges. "Will this piece be displayed with the others?" The judges hesitated. One of them said, "It was placed in the back." "We usually put pencil sketches separately. Move it to the front," the prince said firmly, "next to the others." The judges nodded quickly. "Yes, Your Highness." Keanu didn't know how to react. He had come here thinking people would laugh, and they did. But now the entire room looked at him differently. Prince William looked at him again and smiled. "Your mother must be very proud." "She is," Keanu said softly. "Even if she can't come here." Prince William nodded. Then he turned and walked to the next display, leaving behind a completely changed atmosphere. Keanu stood still for a moment, trying to take in what had just happened. The same people who had mocked him now looked at him with respect. Some looked even guilty. As staff members carefully lifted his sketch and carried it to the front of the room, Keanu followed slowly behind. He didn't care about winning anymore. He didn't care about prizes or trophies, because in that moment, he realized something stronger than winning had happened. Someone had seen his heart, and that someone was a prince. The boy who entered as a joke had become the one no one could forget. Keanu stood near the front now. His drawing was no longer hidden in the corner. It was placed between two golden-framed paintings, one of a glowing castle and the other of a flying ship. His sketch looked simple next to them. No colors, no expensive frame, just pencil on paper. But it was the one everyone was talking about now. Prince William stayed in the hall, walking slowly, looking at each artwork. But everyone noticed he kept glancing back at Keanu's sketch. People began whispering again, but this time it wasn't about Keanu's old jacket or broken shoes. It was about his story, his art, him. A famous reporter leaned toward one of the judges and said, "Who's the boy?" The judge fixed his tie and answered, "His name is Keanu Michaels. From Eastwood District. Came in alone." Another voice added, "He said the sketch is of his mother. She's sick." More people gathered around the drawing now. Some parents who had ignored him earlier were now pointing at his work, discussing the emotion in the mother's eyes. Keanu stood near the wall, not sure where to go. He didn't feel like he belonged with the rich kids. But he didn't want to leave either. A woman in a black dress, holding a small notepad, walked up to him. "Excuse me," she said kindly. "I'm from a local newspaper. Can I ask you a few questions?" Keanu blinked. "Me? Yes, your drawing." It touched a lot of people. Keanu hesitated, then nodded. "What inspired you to draw this?" He looked down at his shoes for a moment before replying. "My mom. She's been sick for a long time. But even when she was tired, she always smiled for me. That smile, I didn't want to forget it. So I drew it." The woman wrote quickly. Her eyes softened. "That's beautiful and powerful." Before she could ask more, another voice interrupted. "Keanu," said Prince William. Everyone turned again. The prince was standing just a few steps away. Keanu's eyes went wide. "Yes, sir?" "I wanted to ask one more thing," the prince said gently. "Would you mind telling the room why you chose this exact moment to draw?" Keanu swallowed. His throat felt dry. But he saw everyone waiting, watching, and somehow he found his voice. "She was in the hospital," he began. "The day I made this, she had lost more hair, and she was crying when she thought I wasn't looking. But when I came into the room, she smiled at me, like nothing was wrong." He paused, then added, "I drew that smile because it was strong. Because she gave it to me, even when she was in pain. And I didn't want to lose it." The room was quiet. No one laughed. No one even moved. Some people had tears in their eyes. One woman whispered to her daughter, "That's real art." The boy in the blue suit who had laughed earlier now stood at the back, staring down at his own painting. It was colorful, perfect, and expensive looking. But suddenly, it didn't feel important. One of the judges stepped forward, trying to take control of the room again. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's continue with the formal judging. We still have many fine works to see. But Prince William raised his hand once more. With all respect, he said calmly, I'd like to stay until the end. And I would like Keanu's work to remain where it is. The judge cleared his throat and nodded quickly. Of course, Your Highness. Keanu's ears felt hot. He couldn't believe what was happening. It all felt like a dream. As people moved on to see other pieces, a few came up to him. One teenage boy said softly, I didn't get your drawing before. But now I do. It's amazing, man. A girl came over and smiled gently. Your mom must be really proud. Keanu didn't know what to say. He just smiled back. Hours passed. More people came and went. Some only stopped to see Keanu's sketch. Others asked him quiet questions. He stayed humble, answering softly, never forgetting where he came from. At one point, someone brought him a glass of juice on a silver tray. He smiled politely, but didn't touch it. He kept thinking about his mom back at the hospital, lying alone in her bed. Before leaving, Prince William walked up to him one last time. I hope this won't be your last drawing, the prince said. Keanu shook his head. No, sir, I want to keep drawing. Maybe even teach kids someday. The prince smiled. You've already taught many people something tonight. He gave Keanu a light pat on the shoulder and then turned to leave. Keanu stood still for a long time, watching him go. Tonight, he had come with just a drawing. But he was leaving with something much bigger. Respect, hope, and a new beginning. Keanu sat quietly on the train ride home. His sketch was safely rolled up in a tube next to him. He looked out the window, watching the city lights pass by. But his mind was still inside the Royal Art Hall. He replayed every moment again and again, the laughter, the silence, the prince's voice, and the way the entire room had changed. He touched the tube softly, his mother's face. That smile. It had done something he never thought possible. When Keanu walked into his apartment, it was almost midnight. The air inside was cold, and the lights were dim. His mother lay on the couch under a blanket, tired and pale. She had stayed awake for him. He knelt beside her and gently held her hand. Mom, he whispered, I did it. She looked at him and smiled, even in her weak state. I knew you would. Keanu opened the tube and unrolled the drawing. He placed it on the wall above her bed. You made the Royal Hall proud, she whispered. But you always made me proud first. Her eyes closed slowly, and she fell asleep peacefully. Keanu sat beside her all night, listening to her breathe. The next morning, something strange happened. A knock came on the door. When Keanu opened, a man in a suit stood outside. Keanu Michaels? The man asked politely. Yes, I'm from the local news station. We'd like to speak with you about your artwork. And the prince, Keanu blinked. You want to interview me? The man smiled. Your story has touched many people. Within hours, the small living room was filled with cameras, lights, and reporters. His mother sat proudly in her chair, weak but smiling, as Keanu told the story again, how he only used pencil and chalk, how he drew from memory, and how Prince William had defended him in front of everyone. By the end of the day, Keanu's name was on every local channel. His photo appeared in online articles, and people started sharing his sketch all over social media. Some called it the drawing of love. Others named it the smile that stopped a room. Strangers sent him messages. Artists from around the country said they cried when they saw the sketch. One man even said he hadn't picked up a pencil in 10 years. But Keanu inspired him to try again. The school that had once ignored Keanu's talent now posted his story on their website. His old teachers, who never noticed his drawings in the back of the classroom, suddenly wanted to talk to him. But Keanu didn't care about attention. He only cared about one thing, making his mom smile again. The hospital called the next day. They said they had seen the news too. "We would like to display your artwork in our children's wing," the nurse said. "Your story brings hope. And right now, our patients need that more than ever." Keanu agreed immediately. He made a special copy of the sketch, carefully printed and framed, and brought it to the hospital himself. He met small kids with tired eyes and brave smiles, just like his mother. He talked to them. He showed them how to draw with simple pencils. One little girl hugged him and said, "I want to draw my dad too." Something inside Keanu changed that day. He realized his art could do more than just show feelings. It could heal. It could bring comfort. It could speak when words couldn't. Later that week, another letter came. This one had a royal stamp. It was from Kensington Palace. Keanu opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a small envelope with the royal seal and a handwritten note from Prince William himself. "Dear Keanu, your art reminded me that leadership is not about power, but heart. You spoke without saying much. Thank you for teaching us what courage looks like. Keep drawing. The world needs more of it. William." Keanu held the letter for a long time. His eyes filled with tears, but he didn't let them fall. He carefully placed the letter in a glass frame and hung it beside his sketch of his mom. That night, he sat with his mother again. She looked weaker now. Her hands were cold. But her smile was still there. "I saw you on TV," she whispered. "You look just like your father." Keanu nodded. "I'm going to keep drawing, Mom. For you, for others, for everyone who feels unseen." She squeezed his hand gently, and then her eyes closed once more. Keanu stayed beside her. Outside, the world was changing for him. But inside their small home, nothing mattered more than that quiet promise. He would draw, and he would make sure no one, especially those with the softest voices, would ever feel invisible again. The next morning, Keanu woke up to the sound of his phone buzzing nonstop. It was filled with messages, missed calls, and notifications. His name was everywhere, on news channels, social media, blogs, even school newsletters from places he had never heard of. At first, he didn't believe it. But when he opened one of the links, he saw it clearly. The Prince and the Pencil, a boy's sketch that moved royalty. His story had gone viral. People from all over the world were sharing the picture of his mother's smiling face. Thousands were commenting, "This made me cry. This is what art should be. And thank you, Keanu, for reminding us what love looks like." Keanu's hands shook as he scrolled through the messages. A famous artist from Italy had shared the sketch on her page, writing, "This boy understands more about art than half the trained painters I know." He showed his mom the phone. She smiled weakly, touching the screen with her finger. "That's your art, baby," she whispered. "You gave people something real." Later that afternoon, a woman knocked on the door. She wore a long brown coat and carried a rolled-up folder. "Are you Keanu Michaels?" she asked. "Yes, I'm from the Silver Branch Gallery. We host new talent exhibitions. We saw your drawing, and we'd like to display it in our upcoming show." Keanu blinked. "Really?" She smiled. "You've already touched more people than most artists do in a lifetime. People want to see more." It didn't stop there. Another gallery offered to frame his sketch professionally for free. A charity group working with cancer patients asked if they could use his sketch to inspire children in treatment. One organization even invited him to speak at a youth event. They wanted him to talk about how art helped him survive hard times, but Keanu wasn't thinking about fame or offers. His only thought was, how can I use this to help others, like it helped me? That night, Keanu sat with his mother again. She was getting weaker, needing more rest. Her voice was soft. "Mom," he said, "I want to start something. Something small but good." She opened her eyes. "Like what?" "I want to give sketchbooks and pencils to kids who are sick. Kids in shelters, kids like me." She gave a small nod, her lips forming a soft smile. That's a beautiful idea. So the next day, Keanu took the money people had started sending him through donations and used it to buy boxes of art supplies. He packed little kits, pencils, sketchbooks, erasers, and a message handwritten by him. Your art matters. Your voice matters. Keep drawing. Keanu, he gave the first box to the hospital where his mother had been treated. The nurses cried when they saw it. One little boy, who had been too scared to talk to anyone, drew a picture of his dog and gave it to Keanu as a thank you. That moment stayed in Keanu's heart. More people heard about what he was doing and began helping. Schools donated old supplies. A local printer gave him free paper. Even his neighbors started pitching in, helping him pack and deliver the kits. He called the project Sketching Hope. As days passed, letters from children began arriving. Some wrote, "Thank you for making me smile," while others sent their first ever drawings. One boy wrote, "When I draw, I forget the pain." Keanu read every letter. Some made him smile. Others made him cry. But all of them made him feel stronger. One evening, as he sorted through the letters, a thick envelope arrived with a golden seal. He opened it carefully. Inside was a simple, clean paper with the royal crest at the top. To Keanu Michaels, your work continues to inspire many, including me. Please accept this personal donation to help you grow your mission. Never stop creating. Warm regards, William. A check was included. Keanu couldn't believe the amount. It was enough to help hundreds of kids. He looked at his mom, sleeping peacefully in her bed. He held the letter tightly and whispered, "I'll make you proud, Mom. I promise." The next morning, he started planning something new, a public art show made entirely by children who had never been inside a gallery. Kids from hospitals, foster homes, shelters. He would display their drawings proudly. The way Prince William had once done for him. He remembered how it felt to stand in the corner, invisible. Now he wanted to make sure no child ever felt that. Again, he wasn't just an artist anymore. He was a voice, a light, a pencil in the hand of hope. A week later, Keanu sat at the small kitchen table, carefully wrapping a square canvas with brown paper. His hands moved slowly, making sure the corners were neat. He didn't want it to look rushed. This was special. He wasn't sending just any drawing. This one was for Prince William. Inside the wrapped package was a charcoal sketch of a moment that had changed Keanu's life, the exact moment the prince had knelt beside him at the Royal Art Hall. In the sketch, Prince William was leaning down, looking at Keanu's drawing, while the young boy stood quietly beside him, unsure and nervous. Keanu had titled the piece, "The Moment He Made Me Believe." He wrote a small note too. "Dear Prince William, thank you for seeing me when no one else did. This drawing is my gift to you. You didn't just notice my art, you gave me the courage to keep going." Keanu Michaels, he placed the wrapped canvas in a protective box and nailed it to Kensington Palace. After that, he didn't think about it much. He went back to his routine, spending time with his mother, delivering art kits to hospitals, and checking on the children who had written. To him, his project Sketching Hope was growing fast. More volunteers were joining, and more schools were reaching out. But something unexpected happened a few days later. A white car pulled up outside Keanu's building. A man in a navy blue coat stepped out, holding a black folder. He walked up to Keanu's door and knocked gently. "Mr. Keanu Michaels?" he asked. Keanu nodded, unsure. "I come with a message from His Royal Highness Prince William." The man opened the folder and handed Keanu a card, thick, smooth, with the royal crest at the top. The words were handwritten in neat and careful script. "Dear Keanu, your gift moved me deeply. I have placed your drawing in my personal office. A reminder that courage and truth often come from the quietest places. You have given me more than art. You have given me perspective. Thank you. William." Keanu stared at the note for a long time. He didn't say anything. His throat felt tight. The man in the coat smiled. There's more, he added. His Royal Highness has arranged for your sketch to be displayed in the upcoming Young Artists exhibition. In a special section called Voices of Hope, it will hang beside works by some of the most famous painters in the country. Keanu's eyes widened. My sketch, really? The man nodded. The prince insisted. That evening, Keanu told his mom everything. She was resting in her bed, her breathing slow and soft, but she listened with her eyes. He placed the prince's letter beside her pillow. You're going to be in a real art exhibition, she whispered. And not just any, but one that matters. Keanu sat beside her, holding her hand. It's because of you, Mom. You gave me the reason to draw. She smiled faintly. Promise me something. Anything. Keep going, even when I'm not here. Keep drawing. For those who can't, Keanu couldn't reply. He just nodded and squeezed her hand gently. Over the next few days, something beautiful began to happen. Children who had received his art kits started sending back their own drawings. Some made pictures of their dreams, others of their families, and some just used colors to show their feelings. Keanu pinned each one to a big board in his room. The board was soon full. One drawing showed a small boy holding a balloon, smiling, next to a hospital bed. Another showed a girl sitting on the floor with a crown on her head, and the words, I'm a warrior, not a patient. Keanu looked at those pictures and knew what he had to do. He called the Silver Branch Gallery, the same gallery that had offered to show his work, and asked a bold question. Can I host a one-day exhibit for the kids who've sent me art? The gallery owner paused. You mean children from hospitals and shelters? Yes, Keanu said. They've shown me their hearts. I want to show the world. After a short silence, the owner replied, We'll make it happen. Keanu got to work. He printed the kids' drawings on canvas, added their names, and wrote little stories under each one. He called the event, See Me, Art from the Brave. The night before the exhibit, Keanu couldn't sleep. He sat near his mother, who now barely opened her eyes. It's all because of you, Mom, he whispered. I hope you'll be there. Tomorrow, even if you can't walk in, I'll bring it all to you. She smiled faintly, her lips barely moving. But it was a smile, and that was enough. The next day, the gallery was packed. Doctors, teachers, artists, even reporters came. But most importantly, so did the kids. Some in wheelchairs, some holding 4 poles, others holding the hands of their parents. They walked through the gallery wide-eyed, pointing at their own drawings, laughing and smiling for the first time in a long while. Keanu stood quietly in the corner, just like he had at the Royal Art Hall, but this time no one laughed at him. No one ignored him. They celebrated him. They celebrated every child whose art now spoke louder than words. And somewhere, in the quiet of a hospital bed, Keanu's mother rested knowing her son had become something more than just an artist. He had become a reason for others to believe. The morning of the exhibition, Keanu arrived early at the Silver Branch Gallery. His hands were full tubes of children's drawings, boxes of sketchbooks, and name tags for every young artist who was coming. The gallery had never seen anything like this before. Instead of adults in suits and ties, today the room was filled with laughter, wheelchairs, crutches, and tiny hands holding onto parents and nurses. Some of the children wore hospital gowns, some wore hats to cover bald heads, and some wore big smiles that brightened the whole room. The gallery walls were no longer covered with serious art made by professionals. Now the walls held crayon drawings, pencil sketches, and colorful paint splashes. Each piece had a small story below it, written by Keanu. This is Jack's dragon. Jack says it protects his dreams. This is Amira's flower. She drew it after her last chemo session. This is Zoe's sun. She says it never stops shining, even when she's tired. People walked around the gallery slowly, reading the notes and stopping in front of the art. Some smiled, some cried. Others stood in silence, feeling things they hadn't felt in a long time. Keanu stood near the door, watching everyone. He didn't try to be in the spotlight. He didn't make big speeches. He just smiled when the children pointed at their drawings and whispered, "That's mine." A girl in a wheelchair rolled up to him. She had bright pink glasses and tiny fingers stained with paint. "Are you Keanu?" she asked. "Yes. My name is Maya. Thank you for putting my butterfly up there. My dad cried when he saw it." Keanu knelt beside her and smiled. "Your butterfly made the room more beautiful." She grinned and wheeled away to show her art to a reporter. More people came: teachers, nurses, artists, even a few celebrities. But the most special guests were the children and their families. Some of them had never been inside an art gallery before. Some had never seen their work on a wall. Today, they were not just patients or poor kids. They were artists. As the sun began to set, Keanu received a message on his phone. It was from Kensington Palace. The message read, "His Royal Highness Prince William sends his warmest regards for today's event. Though unable to attend, he has made a donation to support your next exhibition. Please continue the good work. You are changing lives." Keanu stared at the message, his heart full. He hadn't expected anything. But once again, the prince had reached out at the right moment, just like he had at the Royal Art Hall. He looked around the gallery. The children were laughing, playing, drawing on the small art corner he had set up with free supplies. Parents were taking pictures, proud and emotional. And in the middle of it all was Keanu, quiet, calm, happy. Later in the evening, the gallery owner stepped forward and made an announcement. "Everyone, may I have your attention?" she said with a kind smile. "We want to thank someone very special today. Without him, this event would never have happened. He gave these children a chance to be seen. Please, let's thank Keanu Michaels." The room erupted into applause. Keanu felt his face turn red, but he smiled and bowed his head. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. The smiles around him said enough. Before leaving, each child was given a small gift bag filled with art tools, snacks, and a personal letter from Keanu that said, "You are more than strong. You are seen. You are an artist. Keep drawing." After everyone left and the gallery became quiet, Keanu stayed back to help clean up. He folded chairs, packed leftover supplies, and carefully took down the drawings to return to the children. Then, he went home. When he walked into the apartment, the silence hit him. His mother was still. She hadn't spoken much that day. Her breathing was slower. Keanu sat beside her and held her hand. "Mom," he whispered. "It was beautiful. You would have loved it." He told her about the kids, the drawings, the smiles, the joy. He told her how they were brave and proud, just like she had always been. Her eyes opened slowly. She looked at him, her lips barely moving. "You did good," she whispered. Keanu leaned closer. "I did it because of you." She smiled. That was the last time she did. That night, Maria Michaels passed away peacefully, her hand still in her son's. No pain, no fear, just peace. The next morning, Keanu didn't cry in front of anyone. He simply picked up a pencil and began to draw her again. Not just her face, but everything she gave him: courage, love, and purpose. And this time, the whole world would see it. Days passed after his mother's quiet goodbye. The apartment felt colder now, quieter than ever. Every corner reminded Keanu of her, her smile, her soft voice, her strength, even when she was in pain. But Keanu didn't break down. He didn't disappear into sadness. Instead, he drew. He drew every day. He drew his mother's hands holding his when he was small. He drew the blanket she used to cover herself with while watching the evening news. He drew her eyes, tired but full of warmth. And most importantly, he drew her smile, the one that had once changed a royal hall full of strangers. Art became his way to breathe, to survive, and to speak. And with every sketch he shared a piece of her with the world. Keanu kept going with his project, sketching hope. It grew faster than he expected. Now it wasn't just him and a few volunteers. Schools, hospitals, and even art universities were reaching out, offering help and asking to join. One large school even canceled their usual art contest and replaced it with a Hope Through Art week where students drew only about kindness, family, and love. They invited Keanu as a guest speaker. He stood on the stage, nervous but calm, and spoke with simple words that touched everyone. "I'm not here because I won something," he said. "I'm here because someone believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. That belief came from a mother's smile and a prince's words. And both changed my life." The audience stood and clapped. Some cried. Even teachers had tears in their eyes. That same week, Keanu got a call from the National Art Museum. They wanted to create a small section in their gallery called Hearts in Pencil, a permanent space to show how art made by ordinary people can create extraordinary change. "We'd like your original sketch to be the first piece in that section," the voice said on the phone. Keanu sat still. The sketch of his mother, the very one he had drawn late at night in a tiny hospital room, was now going to hang in a museum. He carefully took the sketch out of its folder. It was a little old now, the edges soft, the paper slightly curled. But the smile on his mother's face was still there, still glowing, still full of life. He framed it in a simple black frame and brought it to the museum himself. The day it was placed on the wall, a crowd gathered to watch. Some took pictures, some stood in silence. Others walked closer and read the small note written beside it. This drawing was made by Keanu Michaels, a boy with no money, no colors, and no fame. What he had was love, and that was enough. The little girl standing with her father whispered, "She looks like an angel." Keanu smiled quietly from the back of the room. Over the next few months, Keanu started something even bigger. He opened a small art studio in the neighborhood where he grew up. He didn't charge money. The sign on the front said, "If you feel something, come draw it." Kids from all over the city came. Some had lost family. Some were scared. Some were just lonely. But when they sat at Keanu's table with a pencil in hand, they were all equal. They were all safe. He sat with them, showed them how to shade, how to sketch, and most importantly, how to feel through art. He never tried to be famous, but fame found him anyway. Documentaries were made about him. Newspapers called him the boy who drew the world's heart. Even a school textbook added a small story about him in the section about real-life heroes. Years later, when people asked him what moment changed everything, he would always answer the same: the moment Prince William said, "Let me see that again." And when they asked what his mother would think of all this, he would smile and say, "She already knew. She believed in me before the world did." Keanu never stopped drawing. He never stopped helping. He never stopped believing that one sketch, one story could change everything. And somewhere, in a quiet corner of the National Art Museum, his mother's smile still watched over visitors, reminding them that love, seen through the eyes of a son, is the most powerful art of all. And people still came, years later, standing in front of that sketch, some silent, some in tears, and some simply whispering, "Thank you, Keanu."